The war had ended, but peace felt hollow in the cold ruins of the alien medical facility. Drake, a human combat medic, moved cautiously through the debris-strewn corridors, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. His mission was simple: mark the building as cleared and move on. But fate had other plans. A faint beeping echoed through the silence, drawing him deeper into the facility. Following the sound, he discovered a sealed chamber half buried under rubble. With trembling hands, he cleared away the debris, revealing a stasis pod behind cracked glass. Inside floated a young alien woman, her lavender skin ethereal in the dim light, white hair drifting like silk in the stasis fluid. She appeared to be about 20 in human years, her delicate features peaceful yet vulnerable. Drake's scanner flashed urgent warnings: heart rate critical, oxygen depleting, immune system failure. "She's dying," he whispered to himself, his medical training overriding protocol. Working quickly, he pried open the pod. The woman gasped softly as the fluid drained, her chest rising and falling weakly. Purple blood seeped from wounds on her arms, a sign of severe immune system collapse. His scanner revealed the devastating truth: a virus had destroyed her natural defenses, and without compatible alien donors, she had hours to live. Then his scanner chimed with impossible news: 61% compatibility with human blood. It wasn't perfect, but it might be enough to buy her time. The risk was enormous. She could reject the transfusion, or worse, both of them might not survive the procedure. Looking down at her pale lips and twitching fingers, Drake made his choice. "She didn't ask for this war," he said quietly, reaching for his transfusion equipment. As his blood flowed into her weakened body, something extraordinary happened. Her skin grew warmer, her breathing steadied, and her heart rate strengthened. But most miraculous of all, her fingers found his hand, gripping it with gentle trust, a connection that transcended species. For 2 hours, Drake sat beside her, growing weaker as she grew stronger. When his squad called over the radio, demanding his location, he could barely respond. But she was stabilizing, and that was all that mattered. When she finally stirred, her lips parted in a whisper of her alien language, yet somehow Drake understood her meaning. She was asking why he had saved her. "Because you were worth saving," he whispered back, squeezing her hand. As explosions rocked the facility, Drake gathered the fragile woman in his arms and carried her toward safety. She was light as a feather, but alive, gloriously, impossibly alive. His squad waited by their dropship, staring in shock at the alien in his arms. "What the hell is that?" one soldier demanded. "She's not a that," Drake growled protectively. "She's wounded and she's with me." Despite the commander's protests about bringing an alien aboard, Drake held firm. She was coming with them, and nothing would change his mind. As they lifted off, the woman's eyes remained closed, but her fingers never released his hand. Deep within her transformed body, changes were beginning. Changes that would bind their fates together in ways neither could imagine. The war had ended, but their story was just beginning. The medical bay aboard the human space station hummed with quiet efficiency, but for 3 days, the lavender-skinned woman remained motionless. Drake hadn't left her bedside, surviving on coffee and determination as doctors monitored her remarkable recovery. "She's changing," one physician whispered during rounds. "Her DNA is partially human now." Drake didn't understand the science, but he could see the evidence. Her wounds were healing impossibly fast, her vital signs growing stronger each day. What he had done to save her life had fundamentally altered her very being. On the 4th day, she awakened. Her eyes opened slowly, pupils adjusting to the sterile lighting. When her gaze found Drake's face, confusion flickered across her delicate features. Her breathing quickened, panic setting in as alarms began beeping. "It's okay," Drake whispered, gently taking her trembling hand. "You're safe. No one will hurt you." Though she couldn't understand his words, something in his tone calmed her. Over the following days, a fragile trust began to bloom. She wouldn't eat until he took the first bite, wouldn't rest unless he was nearby. The bond forged in that dying moment was growing stronger. On the 5th night, she spoke her first word. Sila. She pointed to herself, repeating the melodic sound. It was her name. Sila, Drake repeated, and her face brightened with the first smile he'd seen from her. She pointed to him questioningly, and he placed a hand on his chest. Drake, Drake, she whispered back, the name sounding musical in her alien accent. Medical tests revealed the full extent of her transformation. Sila's immune system had adapted perfectly to human blood, but more than that, her cells were rebuilding themselves, incorporating human genetic material. She was becoming something entirely new, a bridge between two species. Not everyone was pleased with this development. The station commander arrived with a stern warning about keeping her away from restricted areas and threats of deportation if anything went wrong. Sila watched from her bed, understanding the tension even without comprehending the words. When they were alone again, Drake took her hand reassuringly. I won't let them take you, he promised. That night, Sila's dreams were haunted by memories of fire, screams, and unbearable loneliness. She woke crying, tears glowing faintly on her cheeks. Drake rushed to comfort her, holding her until the trembling stopped. Just a dream, he soothed, though her whispered words suggested otherwise. No dream, she managed in broken English. I remember fire, screams, pain, alone. Drake's heart ached for her suffering. You're not alone anymore. As days passed, Sila grew stronger and more confident. She could walk, feed herself, and even laugh at Drake's clumsy attempts to pronounce alien words. But the most shocking change came on the 7th day. She rushed to the basin, retching violently. Drake found her there, dizzy and pale, one hand pressed to her stomach. When she looked up at him, her eyes held a mixture of fear and wonder. She whispered something in her native language, and though the translator caught only fragments, one word came through clearly. Child. Drake froze. What did you say? Sila pointed to her stomach, then to him, her voice barely audible. Yours. The impossible had become reality. Not only had his blood saved her life and transformed her very essence, but somehow it had also created new life within her. As Drake stared into her glowing eyes, seeing hope and terror warring in their depths, he realized their bond had become something far more profound than either had imagined. Emergency medical scans confirmed what seemed impossible. Sila was pregnant, carrying a child with mixed human and alien DNA. The medical team stood in stunned silence as the results displayed on their screens. This shouldn't be possible, the head physician muttered. She should barely be alive, let alone pregnant. You didn't just save her, he told Drake gravely. You fundamentally changed her. Sila sat on the medical bed, one hand resting protectively over her stomach, her skin shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Despite the miracle growing within her, her expression was troubled. Drake sat beside her, trying to offer reassurance. Are you okay? She shook her head slowly. Not afraid for me, she whispered in her improving English, then looked down at her belly. Afraid for child. Her concern was well-founded. She had witnessed the fearful glances from station personnel, heard the whispered conversations outside her room. If they looked at her with suspicion, what would they do to her child, a being that was neither fully human nor fully alien? I will protect you both, Drake promised, taking her hand. You're not alone in this. Sila's eyes searched his face. Promise? I swear it. But outside their small sanctuary, tensions were escalating rapidly. News of Sila's pregnancy spread throughout the station like wildfire. The commander called an emergency meeting, his face grim. She's pregnant with a hybrid, he announced to the gathered officers. We don't know what this means for station security or diplomatic relations. Drake stood firm against the mounting concerns. She's not a threat. She's scared, and just wants to live. You're too close to this situation, the commander warned. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking like a human, Drake snapped back, with compassion. That night, unable to sleep, Scylla stood by the small window in their quarters, gazing out at the stars. Drake found her there, her silver hair catching the dim light like spun moonbeams. "My kind would call me cursed," she said without turning around. Drake moved closer. "Your kind was wrong to leave you for dead." She turned to face him. "And yours?" He smiled sadly. "Some will fear you, but not all. Not me." Scylla studied his face for a long moment, then gently took his hand and placed it on her belly. The moment was electric, silent, warm, and profoundly intimate. But their peace was shattered the next morning. The commander burst into their quarters with devastating news. "A Thari patrol ship is approaching. Someone sent them a signal about Scylla." Drake's blood ran cold. "They'll kill her." Scylla's voice was barely a whisper. "They will take child, too." "I have no choice," the commander said heavily. "If we hide her, it could start an interspecies war." Drake stepped protectively in front of Scylla. "Then let them come, but they won't touch her." Desperate to protect her, Drake led Scylla through maintenance corridors to a hidden supply room deep within the station. As he arranged blankets and supplies, she grabbed his arm. "Why do you help me?" she asked, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and confusion. Drake paused, then spoke softly. "Because I care." "About the child?" He leaned closer, his voice barely audible. "About you." Her breath caught as she looked into his eyes. Slowly, she leaned forward and rested her head against his chest. He held her gently, feeling her heartbeat synchronize with his own. Outside, alarms began blaring. The Thari ship had arrived. Scylla looked up, fear flickering in her luminous eyes. "If they find me..." "They won't," Drake interrupted firmly. "I won't let them." She stared at him with those impossibly bright eyes. "Even if I change more?" He nodded without hesitation. "I saved your life, and now your life has saved mine." The bond between them had evolved beyond mere survival into something deeper and more dangerous, a love that would be tested by the approaching storm. The Thari warship hung in space like a predatory shadow, its dark hull gleaming with ominous red lights. Inside the human command center, tension crackled as an ultimatum arrived. Return the contaminated female immediately, or face the consequences. "She hasn't violated anything," Drake argued fiercely with the commander. "She survived." "You don't understand their beliefs," the commander replied grimly. "Mixed blood is considered blasphemy. They believe her child will curse their entire species." Hidden in the supply room, Scylla had overheard everything through the station's communication system. Her hands trembled as she cradled her growing belly. "I should leave," she whispered when Drake returned to her. "I won't let them destroy this place because of me." Drake knelt beside her, his voice firm. "You're not going anywhere, but I'm not human. You're not just alien anymore either," he interrupted gently. "You're part of both worlds now." The Thari demanded to speak with Scylla alone. Despite Drake's protests, she agreed to face them, knowing that hiding would only make things worse. As she prepared to leave, she touched his hand one final time. "I'll be okay," she promised, though neither of them believed it. The council chamber aboard the Thari ship was a cold, imposing space. 3 tall figures stood shrouded in shadow, their blue eyes glowing behind silver veils. When Scylla entered, their collective disapproval was palpable. "Daughter of Thari," one boomed, "you should have died with honor." Scylla remained calm despite her fear. "I chose to live." "You are infected with human corruption." "No," she replied steadily. "I am healed." "You carry a hybrid child, an abomination that threatens our genetic purity." Scylla stepped forward, her voice shaking but determined. "I carry hope. Something new, not a curse." The chamber fell silent before one elder delivered their ultimatum: surrender the child or face execution. Back on the station, Drake paced frantically until alarms suddenly blared throughout the corridors. Scylla had escaped the Thari ship, but she was being pursued. He found her running through the hallways, breathing hard, a fresh bruise blooming on her cheek. She collapsed into his arms. "They won't let me go," she gasped. "Then we run." Drake decided instantly, lifting her carefully. "I'm not losing you." They fought their way through station corridors as Thari drones swarmed the lower levels. Some humans tried to stop them while others looked away, torn between duty and compassion. Finally reaching the hangar, Drake activated a small emergency pod, just 2 seats, no weapons, built only for speed. As Scylla climbed inside, clutching her stomach protectively, she asked breathlessly, "What now?" Drake looked at her, then up at the infinite expanse of stars. "Now we disappear." The pod launched into the void, Thari ships immediately giving chase. But the human commander, perhaps moved by their desperation, sent out false signals that confused the enemy trackers. Soon, Drake and Scylla were drifting silently through deep space, free but far from safe. Inside the cramped pod, Scylla leaned her head against Drake's shoulder. "Are you scared?" she whispered. He looked down at her, exhaustion and determination warring in his features. "I'm holding the 2 most important lives in the galaxy right now."
"Yeah, I'm scared." She chuckled softly, the sound like music in the confined space. "Thank you for choosing me." Outside their small refuge, stars glittered like diamonds against the cosmic darkness. Behind them, warships roared their fury while
ahead lay unknown galaxies and uncertain futures. But for the first time since her awakening, Scylla didn't feel alone. She felt alive, loved, and hopeful. Whatever challenges awaited them in the vast emptiness of space, they would face them together. A human who had risked everything for love, an alien transformed by sacrifice, and the miraculous child who represented the future of both their species. Drifting through the debris field of an ancient battlefield, Drake and Scylla found temporary refuge in an abandoned cargo ship. The ghostly hulks of destroyed vessels floated around them like monuments to forgotten wars, but within their makeshift shelter, something beautiful was growing. Days turned into weeks as they waited, hoped, and prepared. Scylla's condition progressed remarkably, her belly swelling with new life, while an extraordinary golden glow began emanating from within her. "Is this normal for your kind?" Drake asked, one evening, mesmerized by the soft light pulsing beneath her skin. Scylla shook her head, placing her hands over the luminescence. "No, this is something entirely new." Their peaceful hideaway couldn't last forever. When enemy scouts discovered their location, Drake made the desperate decision to seek sanctuary at a legendary free colony, a place where humans and aliens supposedly lived together in harmony, beyond the reach of any government or military force. The colony floated like a beacon of hope within a colorful nebula, its eclectic collection of structures welcoming refugees from across the galaxy. As their pod approached the docking bay, Scylla gripped Drake's hand tightly. "Will they accept us?" she whispered, her advanced pregnancy making every movement careful and deliberate. "If anyone will," Drake replied. "It's them." The colony's council was a diverse group of humans and aliens who had all fled their own conflicts. They listened carefully as Drake and Scylla told their story, their eyes widening at the sight of the golden glow emanating from her belly. "The child is something unprecedented," observed one of the elder women. "But is it dangerous?" Scylla looked up from where she sat, exhausted but dignified. "I'm not asking only for myself. I'm asking for a chance for him for something new." After much deliberation, they were granted asylum with one condition. The child must be monitored to ensure its powers didn't threaten the colony's safety. Weeks later, in a small medical facility filled with beings from dozens of worlds, Scylla went into labor. Drake held her hand as the golden light within her intensified, filling the room with warm radiance. When their son finally arrived, his cry was unlike anything any of them had heard. Musical, otherworldly, beautiful. The child had smooth, light green skin, tiny glowing eyes, and soft golden hair that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. He's perfect, Scylla whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. What will you name him? Asked the attending physician, awed by the child's ethereal beauty. Scylla looked at Drake, then down at their son. Ellen. It means hope in the old, Thari tongue. As word of Ellen's birth spread through the colony, something remarkable happened. The child's mere presence seemed to inspire peace and wonder. He never cried, and when he touched dying plants, they bloomed. Broken technology hummed back to life under his tiny fingers. Some feared his power, others worshipped it, but most simply loved him for what he represented, proof that two different worlds could create something beautiful together. The most surprising visitor came weeks later, an elderly Thari matron who had traveled across the galaxy to see the child everyone was talking about. When she beheld Elaine in Scylla's arms, she fell to her knees in reverence. We were wrong, she whispered, tears flowing down her weathered cheeks. You are not a mistake, you are a bridge between our peoples. That night the colony held a celebration unlike any before. Lights danced through the air as alien musicians played alongside human ones, and food was shared between species that had once considered each other enemies. At the center of it all stood Scylla and Drake, holding their miraculous son. From war and pain, from fear and rejection, they had created something extraordinary. A child who would change everything, a living symbol of hope for the future. As Drake looked at his unusual family, surrounded by the diverse community that had accepted them, he realized that sometimes the greatest love stories don't end with happily ever after. Instead, they end with happily ever beginning, because their son represented not an ending but the start of a new chapter for the entire galaxy. Under the swirling lights of the nebula, three hearts beat as one, human, alien, and something beautifully new. Love had indeed conquered all, creating not just a family, but hope for a future where differences were celebrated rather than feared.